Running Sentences presents The Long Road to Get Home. Part 6. Hopes and Prayers. All the group can do is hope and pray that the portal door will open and let them through to somewhere nice. They don't have high hopes really, but they hope anyway. This story is written and narrated by Michael Hunnery. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within this story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real businesses, characters, events, and/or fictional ones is purely coincidental. Copyright 2024, Michael Hunnery. All rights reserved. Ventured stumbled as they entered the space beyond the door frame, half expecting to fall into an endless void, the other half to come out where they wanted. However, what lay before them was neither of those, as it turned out to be a hallway, a neon blue glowing space that pulsed and looked like it had a door at the end of it. Claudia, along with Keith, had fallen over upon everyone throwing themselves at the space, but now hurried to get up. "Doors and closing. I recommend getting up and moving." They didn't need much encouragement from Langer, who'd spoken, and who was looking back at the door. There was the shape of a shadow creature that clearly could be seen, headed towards it. "Come on, this way!" With Barn now taking the lead and helping Keith as he ran past the group entirely ran. "This isn't where I prayed for us to be." "It doesn't matter much, Claudia, where we were going to get away, and there is a door at the other end, from the looks of things, so come on." In a full sprint, they ran, ignoring everything around them, as the neon continued its weird, pulsing pulse. Each step they had sends a strobe of light down the hallway, with lots of other strobes going off from lots of different steps. In a flash, they reach what is the end of the hallway, and what looks to show a city beyond the doorway image, but it was all bending and distorting every few seconds, and it wasn't quite clear. "Through we go!" Barn jumps into the mess. It looks like an image of a city instead of really a door, but acts like the goo they entered to get into this hallway. He was soon gone, and the rest took only a few seconds to follow. Splash after splash caught them by surprise as they came out of this tunnel and found themselves dropping into a salty, briny, unsettled water. Wave after wave washed over them as they tried to get their bearings. After a solid minute of fighting against the surf, they settled down since it was getting them nowhere, and they let the waves take them towards the shore. A few minutes passed before they found themselves near enough to the docks in a boat which kindly fished them out of the water with strong hands of fish people dragging them out. "Humans, elves, and dwarves, all together in a group? Where did you lot come from?" A portal door dropped us off into the water. Where are we?" "You don't know where you are? How did you use a portal way if you don't know where you're going? Those things are dangerous from what I've heard." The six were soon all on the deck of the fishing vessel that had actually been pulling out of the docks and away from it. A few sailors were gathering around to look at them. We took a chance, since we might have been followed by a terrible creature and we didn't want to, Barn was grabbed and pulled up to standing by his shirt. He was being shaken around a bit by this fish man to make sure that he fully picked up the dwarf and did so with ease. "You're bringing dangers to our shores?" "Well, no, I don't think so, but there was potentially some danger following us." "It doesn't appear to have actually followed, which is good. Maybe it got trapped in the hallway when we fell out?" Rising from her position on the deck as she said this, Caddy glanced towards the water. It was hard to make out anything among the unhappy waves that were crashing towards the shore. "I don't like the sound of this, but we're about to set off to fish, so if we return and something has happened—" "It's an odd time to set out, sir, and I hope you aren't taking us with you." "Of course we're taking you with us. Once you get underway, there is no turning back. The water only takes you one way once you launch. We can't lose our spot to get out of the bay." The rest of Ventured was now on its feet and looking about, a few of them measuring the distance to shore as Barnabas dropped to the deck. "We can't stay since we have some other places to be, namely getting home. So thank you for dragging us out of the water, but I think we need to get back into it." "Yes, as Langer says, if that thing has managed to get through, then we will do our job and confront it." "In the water? None of you look like you can swim." Erie, who had been the last to speak up, was already deftly going overboard, followed by Langer. In a mere moment, the rest were also gone from the deck. The choppy surf bounced them around as they splashed into it once again, though with the docks nearby, the water now had something to smash them into, and it was taking them ever closer to that. "This was not a good idea, Erie." "We couldn't leave on the ship. It was our only choice, Claudia." The shouts between the two were soon drowned out by the splashes of waves crashing into them. Thankfully, though, they weren't slammed into the docks or the built-up embankment to protect the sea walls. It was a staircase down into the water that greeted them and smacked into them, though it also allowed them to get up and out of the water after they collected themselves. Exhausted, Ventured plopped down onto the dock once they were all out. There was a lot of odd stares from people and fish people working the docks, and it did take some time before they were approached by a town guard. "Oh, you lot, where did you come from, and are you stowaways?" "Not stowaways, sir. We dropped through a portal down into the bay." "Yes, as my associate says, we were trying to get to the city, but it miscalculated a bit." "Where were you then?" "We came from the city of the Red Mark." Though the guard was wearing a helmet that covered much of his face, there was a visible lift, and looking over all of them, his eyebrows had probably shot up in surprise, and they could kind of now fully see the man's eyes. "That's across the ocean." "Well, we did use a portal to get here, sir," Barn tried to say as he commanded from his sitting position. "You can't barge into our town from some place like that, though." They, having spent enough time regaining their energy after sitting for a good hour or so, they now started the process of getting up. "Look, we're here now, sir. All we are looking for is another door that will lead us home or to another realm or to something else. We don't have to stay here. We just need a portal doorway," Langer added. "We don't have that kind of thing here." "You're a big city, though, and we were told that there was a good chance you would have one," Caddy would growl as she got a little bit closer to the guard. "Well, I should correct myself, then. I don't know of one, but there is always a chance that our fearless leader knows where one is." The guard was glaring at Caddy and they all stared back at the guard with little hope rising from them. Perhaps they might get to meet this leader. Chances still felt slim on that, though, as more guards began arriving. "We're about to be taken to the local jail, aren't we?" Erie says this, eyeing the guards around her as more and more joined in. "Yes, we can't have a bunch of strangers wandering around our city. You're being arrested." Now surrounded, the group, without saying anything to one another, began to put their hands up in surrender. They were not put into shackles, but they were soon led away. Escorted to the nearest guard post, they were promptly put into a cell together, and then mostly forgotten about. There was some food delivered, but other than that, the afternoon hour passed into the evening before they were bothered again. A slim-looking, furry man, who was far too tall for the room, came in wearing all fine clothes. "Greetings, prisoners." "Hello, who are you?" The furry creature makes its way over to stand before the cage, as they were locked in. His piercing eyes were sheer black, which was unnerving for Barn, who involuntarily stepped back and away. I am the acting general in charge of prisoners. Most call me General, though my name is Freddo the Cool. Nice to meet you. We are the adventuring group Ventured, who were sent to this plane of existence on a quest. And you dropped into our city of water on your way through this quest? No, our quest is done. We're trying to get home. We need a doorway or a lot of ingredients for me to be able to open one. Wait, when did you learn that spell, Keith? I've been working on it since before we went on this adventure. I think I mostly have it down, Langer, but there is only one way to tell. Plus the spell is very heavy on items, and, to expend them, and I'm not entirely sure about it. Why are you here, then? The interruption made Keith and Langer jump and look back to Freddo as he leans towards the cage. We were in a town that had a portal that allowed us to come here, but instead of going to another portal door, it dropped us off in the bay, Claudia would protest. This general considers this with a slow, thoughtful nod, yes. A sound story. The guards said you came from another town or something like that. Then why are you asking us about this? Barn found himself demanding. Well, I guess you're the leader. I have to make sure your story matches up. You could have changed it to something else, couldn't you? We didn't, so will you trust us and let us out? Oh no, I can't do that on my own. It requires a meeting of the local guard leaders to pardon and release you. We don't need a pardon, only a door out. Or the right ingredients to open one. This general seemed to be ignoring both Caddy and Keith's comments. Or just throw us out of the city as long as it isn't back into the water. We can move along without any trouble. All interesting ideas. I believe Catty, Keith, and Miss Erie were the names you gave the guards, but they will have to wait. Barn stormed his way up to the metal bars from where he'd taken a few steps back. How long? We don't have time to be wasting sitting around here since our world is in trouble. Nodding to this, Freddo knelt down, but still wasn't anywhere close to eye level with the dwarf. You mean the golden ball we found among your possessions? Well, that's ours, and it has nothing to do with any of this. A lie. Finally, I hear a lie from you. It is good to know where you stand on all things. That ball is pure evil, and should not be in anyone's grasp. Evil can be used to fight evil, though, and that's why we need it, Langer said, trying to back up Barnes' words. You don't know what's in it, do you? We were sent on a job to save the world. Sometimes that means doing things or getting bad things to help out. We cannot be picky. Barnes' tough words don't seem to affect much. Freddo stood back up to his full height and shook his head sadly and began moving away towards the door. The council will meet soon about you. That is the most I can offer you. Once they were left alone, the group slumps back into their seats on the ground. With no real amenities, they would have to content themselves with themselves, and since it was dark in here, that was rather easy. Luck, though, was slightly on their side, as evening rolled into the morning, and then they were fetched out of the cell. They were only able to take a few steps before they were pushed into a courtroom-like setting, with 3 judges sitting before them on a high bench. One was the easily recognizable man who had come to talk to them previously. The party of Ventured now stands before us. How do you plead? Plead? We haven't been told any charges against us, so we cannot plead. Breaking and entering into our city. The one in the center said this, and peered down on them from behind their glasses. Well, then not guilty, and it would be impossible to do that unless you're locked off from the rest of the world. We are locked off from the rest of the world, sir. Oh. Langer frowns, since he was now afraid what he had said was now going to be used against them. Still, it was a vital piece of information to get, and he hopes that someone in the group might be able to do something with it. We are aliens to this planet. We don't know its ways. We apologize for our actions. Apologize? Do you think that will make up for the actions we had to take? Actions you had to take? Claudia questioned. Yes, locking off the citizens to prevent them from any unknown diseases, cleaning the area with a deep clean. All the muck and work takes time, and we had to make sure our people were safe. It's only been a day. Forgive my fellow judges, Clouseau and Valerie. They want to keep the pristine city pristine at all costs. They care about the costs of surviving in a deadly world. They see strangers as a threat, which you are, without a doubt, a threat since you broke into our home. You three seem already set on how this is going to play out. Why don't you announce your sentencing already? We want to get to know you first, Mr. Barn, and ventured why things have happened. Then we will fully judge you. Then Ventured made the introduction and gave an abbreviated explanation as to what was going on. Concern increased the faces of the judges as Fredo reveals the ball, placing it on the desk before them. Neither of the other two react much, like they've already seen it. Why should we trust you? Judge Valerie demanded. Our only goal is to get back home. We don't want to waste anyone's time or any more time. Explain one more time. What is going on back home, as you say, Mr. Barn? An evil lord has contacted an undead general, who is now leading a group seeking to grab power and take over. One of the ways to potentially stop them is through this ball, or that ball, and if we don't hurry back, they may manage to take over. Unfortunately for you, we care little for what might happen to your world. You should care. Their attention shifts over to Keith. Do you think that they will be satisfied with the idea of staying in one realm? They could quite easily come here and take over. The undead cannot cross over. Are you sure about that, Miss Judge? There are a lot of strange stories about such occurrences in the books I've read and researched. Fairy tales and fiction from books do not prove anything to us. Well, there is a potential solution. Do you have a mirror that will look through the mists and realms? There is a pause by the judges, who turn to converse with one another as Langer leaned towards Keith. Do you still have that ability to peek in on that general, right? The one we accidentally met? Yeah, I have a good memory of what he looked like, and I have the components to set off such a spell. Except we need the mirror. Keith nods as they look to the judges, who now finish consulting with one another. The three sat with their stiff backs staring over at the lot of Ventured. What do you expect to show us if we were to give you a room to look at a mirror? Well, Langer, what do they expect? The undead general will likely be marching his army across the lands, trying to scorch him, to his liking, all so he can take over. Our realm's armies will be fighting and retreating, since one cannot kill what is already dead, with the usual means anyway. And this ball helps you how? Well, as far as we've made out, it can capture the magic essence of what makes that general tick. Their attention shifted to Barn, who'd offered that. It comes at a cost, though, and I don't think you've thought it through, and that is not what this ball is at all. Well, everything comes at a cost. This has come at a greater risk than you could be aware of, though. Well, then explain it to us so we don't make the mistake when using it. Eerie steps forward, chest thrust out, having had enough of all of this. They were going nowhere fast, and they had places to be. Yes, we have to work fast, so tell us or throw us in jail or do something, and Caddy would add. All three judges shot out of their seats, with Clouseau grabbing up the ball and guarding it against his chest. You have no say in what happens to you. The case is closed for now. Back to the cells with you. Guards emerged from a nearby doorway at the sound of Clousier's voice. Then they all had their blades drawn and ready for action. Don't you want to see what's happening in our world? It will come here if you don't do anything. You can't dismiss us without at least knowing something about these threats. You can't dismiss us without at least knowing of what will threaten this world shortly. Langer added in a hurry, trying to get everyone to stop for a second. I will fetch a mirror, but it will be done in your cell. Escorted back there, they were then left in the sweltering heat of the early afternoon. The sunlight was pouring in from above, from a skylight that was barred, which stood giving them their only source of light. The wait for something to happen continued until Freddo appeared with 2 guards and the 2 other judges behind them. They would shuffle in and place the mirror against the far wall across the cell. You promised to show us, so let us see this horribleness you have described. Keith steps forward, but holds up his hand. Unless you're willing to give me the components for the spell, none of this is going to happen. Oh yes, we know that. We went to the wizard of the town to make sure such a spell and its items could not be used in another way against us. Because that man said no, we will now move forward with this plan. Still, do not try anything, or we will know when you're up to something. One of the guards who brought in the mirror fetched some of the stuff out of their pocket and stepped towards the caged wall. With outstretched hands, Keith receives the components and looks them over. Dried aged herbs, mostly, which, if the mirror had been closer, could be used to make a doorway, but they didn't have the bowl, so that wasn't really an option to try. Stand aside and away from the glass, please. You never can know how things will react to a spell unless it's been made for that kind of thing. There was no response to his query, so he sighed again, and, spreading the spices across the palm, rotated them in a circle with his finger from his other hand. We wish to see, we wish to know, and on the general one another realm, one marching to battle to take the world, his name, Osmodius Kroll. Faint smoke began to come up to the palm of his hand, and drifted upwards, and flew with force to the mirror. It splashed against it, fogging it, and entering it, causing the mirror to shimmer with ripples. It may take a minute or two, since there's so much space between us and them. How long exactly? It's hard to say. The ripples turned to waves that stretched from end to end, never settling for a second. Everyone watches as things began to calm down a bit, but the mirror remained in a foggy state. Is this really going to do anything? Mrs. Judge, if you aren't patient, then it won't do anything and you will miss out. Seriously, why does everyone always think magic is instantaneous? Isn't most of it? Well, sure, fighting spells. Other spells seem to take time. There was another shimmer that ran up and down the mirror, clearing it of its murkiness. Now they could clearly see the dark, muddy field and a tall orc whose skull looks split open in spots. Despite this, he seems to be ordering around troops, who are running past towards hordes of living soldiers. Oh, that soldier actually looks familiar. Oh, you think so too, Clouseau? Reminds me of someone we used to know. Ah, yes, he did not go by whatever name you, the troop, gave us. Osmodius Kroll. Yes, that one. If I recall, we call him Orc the Tall. What an original name, Judge Valerie. And he was killed here? Barn asked. Yes, by some magician several decades ago. That proves our point, then. If he's dead and can travel to another realm, he's likely to come back here and take what he wants. In fact, that's probably his plan, revenge, and all of that. The judges look seriously disturbed by what they are being told and see with Erie's explanation. Their eyes stare for moments longer at the mirror before turning to one another and conversing quietly amongst each other. And then, after a few moments, turns to Ventured, still in the cell. What makes you believe that will happen? I have no proof that it will, but I'm not the type of person who will risk such things happening. You need to act, we need to act, and to let us go with that ball and prepare yourselves should we fail. If that was the case, Miss Erie, it would be better if the weapon stayed with us, protecting us against the orc. The two groups stare at each other for a moment as they both contemplate what to do next. I believe that would be a bad idea. You don't belong with this group, Miss Claudia. Our information says that you went missing a few years ago. You belong to this realm, but despite that you went missing. I have no idea what you're talking about, and it doesn't matter right now, judges. You're the princess of the dark city beneath the realm. Of course it concerns us. You only come to the top side when you need something, and right now you need something, don't you? This was earning stares from Ventured, who all took a few steps away from her. I protest, and I know nothing about any of that. Well, you did say you knew a prince from the former town. A vague passing thing, and it was at a party, once. No more, no less. And perhaps it was a bit flirty with him at that time, but I had no idea about this queen, princess business, or whatever it is, Mr. Langer. You do practice the dark arts, though. Barn coughed to get the judge's attention. She healed us, so it's not that bad, Judge Freddo, and really helpful, actually. So whatever she did is not that dark. She taps into the world of the undead, which makes it all the much odder that she's traveling with you because she is dangerous, and you seem to be heroes of some sort, if what she says is true. I was captured, Miss Judge, and whatever memories I've had are now gone of that time. I can heal and help those around me, but I can't touch anything with great dark powers that you think I have. Listen, Judge. It sounds like you've all made up your minds, so tell us what you plan to do so we can worry about our future selves, where our own future is. The three judges look at Langer, and then huddle together for a few moments with an occasional glance thrown towards them. We don't have time for your little games. Tell us what your choice is. Of course. We will not keep you in suspense of things to come for you. It has been decided that you are guilty, and that for the betterment of our society, you will not be allowed free. And without further word about anything about what that actually meant, the judges left with the guards grabbing the fading mirror, which had returned to normal. Once they were all gone, they left the cell quite lonely for the group. You have some questions that are about to be thrown in your direction, Claudia. To that, Claudia sighs and turns to look at her associates, all of them with rather concerned expressions about things. There were a few hands on hips, but Langer, as always, was sort of missing. I don't have good answers, and as I said, my memory is not great. I'm sorry. I feel like I should know things, but... There was a loud click and a creaking noise from the cell door, and they all look over to Langer, who had managed to get the door open, and was now stepping outside of the cell. It's been said and repeated many times that we don't have time to sit around in jail, right? I'm sure that also applies to learning about Claudia. What we should do is we should run out of here and find that ball. We get the ball first, though. Yes, Did that have to be said, Barn? Always make sure of the plan, Langer. The group were moving to get out of the cell, though, with everyone taking careful looks around. Eerie at first ignored that, going right up to Langer and planting a kiss on him. You disappear all too often, but you always make good on it. She then turned to Barn, since they'd all stopped by the door. Well, where is this plan going to take us? We have no plan, as per usual. Well, I didn't expect us to get out of jail so quick, and I was hoping the judges would see things our way. Well, I think the only place that they would probably keep the ball is the castle armory, so we have a trek before us. Are you certain of that information, Claudia? No, Keith, it is just a guess. Well, I needed to make sure, since we're unsure of much lately. Where would the armory be, and where are our weapons? At the castle, which, who knows where that is? That's where the ball would be kept. As for the weapons... Langer was already at the exit, trying to get them working on it to get them out of here, and with a click it swings open. 2 for 2, which is insane, since my luck never lets me open 2 doors in a row. Anyway, weapons, anything around here that could help us out? And then let's get out of here and figure this all out later? No one waited more than half a second before heading out the door, since the room was empty of any useful tools. They spilled out into the early evening salty air onto a busy street. There they would pause to get their bearings and to make sure that they didn't draw any extra attention. There were a few odd stares, but no one said anything to them, and there appeared to be no guards around here. Well, this feels weird. Everything, or do you mean the absence of soldiers to keep us in those cells, Miss Eerie? Eerie took a few steps to the right to look about more while listening to Claudia's response. The building that they'd been put in was a rundown place of 1 story. It was a ways away from things near the docks, but they could still smell the salty sea air, and the vagueness of the castle was also nearby. Both. Shall we head towards that? The group nods and begins heading down the road, trying to be careful. It was strange, since it seems that the citizens of this town all seem to be headed the same way. They made for some nice cover, though, as they went, not talking to one another, and a few pickpocketing of weapons to help them out along the way. Their movement had slowed as the crowds get thicker and tangled up, several streets having joined together and soon merged into a town square where everyone was heading. At the center of that place stood a platform which all 3 judges were on, and now were holding the orb for all to see. Well, that makes things much easier and difficult all at the same time. How do we even get close to them without raising suspicion? I don't think they care much. Look at what they're doing, Claudia answered to Barnes' question. Straining to see, Ventured could make out that there was some sort of arches on the platform. The portal home? But what are they doing? Are they trying to... There was a shattering rupture of a screech of a noise that echoed about the square that interrupted Barnes' further comments. The ball was being held up as dark clouds gathered around the area, followed by flashes of lightning. With this, we can finally sever all connection to the worlds. You, the people, will be free of this world's problems and its issues. The group glances about one another as they all begin doing things at once. Eerie and Barn charge forward, trying to get through the crowd. Langer vanishes, as Caddy heads off to find a vantage point to climb up to and see if she can steal a bow and arrow. That left Keith and Claudia standing there, staring. Hey, can you give me some room? What? I need some room on the ground to cast a spell without an area to do it? Still lost and confused, she follows his request, clapping her hands together and casting her own spell. A moment later, a bubble forms around them, pushing away those unapproved to enter it. "What are you thinking of casting?" "Something similar, but bigger and blinding." With some powder he poured onto the ground, Keith traces a light circle about it, making it bigger and wider and around and around. Once he likes it, a few other items were put into this circle in certain places before he stood up. "Is that just a ward?" "No, it's much more than that, and if my friends know what they have to do, then it will do its job. Stand back." She shook her head as a heavy crash of thunder rattles the town square. A glance over her shoulder made her turn completely, as the golden ball was now over the head of Closure at the edge of the platform, streaks of light etching the sky, snaking closer and closer towards it. "This is what we've been waiting ages for. We will not be stopped." An arrow arches through the sky, smacking perfectly into the ball held in the hands of this judge, who tried to hold on to it. A moment later, the platform began to shake, making holding on near impossible to do. "Come on, we gotta get up there, and unless you want to stay here, Claudia." "You haven't done anything, and we won't know, and won't your spell be ruined if someone steps on it?" It's fine, come on." A slash of lightning scores the sky, arching its way towards the ball glowing in Clouseau's hands. However, it stops far short, splintering as it hits some sort of dome over it. "See, it's done its job." She was busy staring at the podium where a tussle had broken out. A set of hands were trying to wrestle the ball away from Clouseau, but were not having a great success at it. Keith grabs at Claudia by the arm, dragging her towards the platform. "We have to hurry if we don't want to be left behind." End of part 6 of The Long Road to Get Home. Thank you for listening.